That car is junk. Diana Ashford's voice cracked through the microphone like a whip. She pointed straight at the rusted Mustang. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the future of transportation. 50 executives exploded in laughter. The janitor stood frozen near the glass doors, mop still in his hands, gray coveralls stained with bleach. He'd been invisible for 4 years. Not anymore. What Diana didn't know, what nobody in that parking lot knew, was that the man she was humiliating held a master's degree from Stanford. That he'd spent 12 years at NASA designing engines for deep space missions. That his junk car contained technology worth $2 billion. And that her own father had stolen everything from him. The moment Marcus Webb turned that key, Diana Ashford's empire began to crumble. Drop your city in the comments. Let me see how far this story travels. Get him out here, now. Diana snapped her fingers at Derek Manning without looking at him. Her eyes stayed locked on that rusted Mustang in the corner of the lot. Derek hesitated. Diana, he's working. He's just the janitor. Did I stutter? No, but then go get him. Derek's jaw tightened. 15 years he'd worked for this company. First for her father, now for her. He'd learned when to push back and when to shut up. This was a shut-up moment. He walked toward the building. Diana turned back to the crowd of executives gathered for the quarterly innovation showcase. Teslas lined the premium spots. A Porsche Taycan gleamed in the October sun. Someone had shown up in a Mercedes that cost more than most Americans made in 5 years. And then there was that Mustang. Rust spreading across the hood like cancer. Passenger door hanging crooked. Paint faded to the color of dried blood. Diana grabbed the wireless microphone. Everyone, can I get your attention? 50 faces turned toward her. Phones came out. The crowd sensed entertainment coming. Another quarter, another record. Ashford Aerospace continues to dominate. And look at this parking lot. Diana spread her arms wide. This is what success looks like. Henderson, that EQS is gorgeous. Carla, I heard your Taycan hit 60 in 2.4 seconds. Peterson, is that actually a Lucid Air? Laughter, applause, raised champagne glasses. But I think we're missing something. Diana's smile turned sharp. I think we need to celebrate all forms of transportation, even the ones that belong in a junkyard. The glass doors opened. Derek emerged with Marcus Webb beside him. Marcus was still holding the mop. Gray coveralls hung loose on his frame. At 52, he looked 60. Shoulders bent, hands rough and calloused. The kind of man people looked through, not at. 4 years he'd worked here. 4 years of being furniture. Diana watched him approach like a cat watching a wounded bird. There he is, our guest of honor. Marcus stopped walking. Every face turned toward him. Come on, don't be shy. Diana beckoned with her champagne glass. We're celebrating innovation. I thought, why not include everyone, even our support staff? Laughter rippled through the crowd. Marcus didn't move. That is your car, isn't it? Diana pointed at the Mustang. The vintage model. More laughter. Someone whistled. Someone else shouted, does it run on hopes and prayers? Derek touched Marcus's shoulder. Just play along. It'll be over quick. Marcus looked at him. Play along with what exactly? Just, come on. Marcus walked forward, slow, measured. He stopped 30 feet from Diana, close enough to hear everything, far enough to keep some dignity. Diana raised the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, feast your eyes on this masterpiece, 1970 Ford Mustang. Rust included at no extra charge. The crowd roared. I mean, look at it. That's not a car. That's a tetanus shot waiting to happen. More laughter. Cameras flashing. Phones recording. So tell me, Marcus. Can I call you Marcus? He said nothing. When you drive that thing to work every day, what goes through your mind? Do you look at all these beautiful machines and think, maybe someday? Or have you just... Diana paused for effect. Accepted your station in life? The cruelty landed exactly as intended. Casual, almost playful, the worst kind. Marcus stood very still. Something was happening inside him. Something that had been building for 15 years. He thought about Elena. Her hand in his on that hospital bed. Her voice barely a whisper. Don't let them bury it, Marcus. Don't let them win. He thought about the engine under that rusted hood. The engine she helped him build. The engine that could change the world. 4 years of invisibility cracking like old paint. You want to see if it runs? The laughter stopped. Diana blinked. Excuse me. The car. Marcus's voice was steady now, clear. You want to see if it runs? I mean... Diana glanced at Derek, then back at Marcus. Sure, this should be entertaining. Marcus was already walking toward the Mustang. The crowd parted. Whispers started up. What's he doing? Is he serious? Oh, this is going to be good. Marcus reached the car, put his hand on the door handle, metal warm from the sun. He opened the door. The hinges squealed. He slid into the driver's seat. The smell hit him immediately. Old leather, motor oil, and something else. Something only he could identify. Elena's perfume. Faint now. Almost gone. But still there. He gripped the steering wheel. Closed his eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. I tried to stay invisible, but they won't let me. He turned the key. The engine didn't sputter, didn't cough, didn't wheeze. It sang. A deep, smooth, powerful harmonic rolled across the parking lot. The sound was unlike anything that crowd had ever heard. Not from a car, not from a plane, not from any machine ever built. Pure. Perfect. Alive. Diana's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattered on the asphalt. Marcus revved the engine. Once, twice, 3 times. Each time, that impossible sound filled the air, vibrated in their chests, made their teeth hum. Nobody laughed. Nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. Marcus killed the engine, stepped out of the car, walked back toward the building without looking at anyone. Wait! Diana's voice cracked, all the mockery gone. What was that? What kind of engine? But Marcus was already through the glass doors, gone. The crowd stood frozen, staring at the rusted Mustang. Derek walked slowly to Diana's side. His face was pale. What the hell was that? Diana couldn't answer. Her hands were shaking. 2 a.m. Diana grabbed her phone and called Derek. I need everything on Marcus Webb. Employment history, background check, everything. Derek's voice came thick with sleep. Diana, it's 2 in the morning. Did you hear that engine today? Yeah, it was different. Old car, probably some custom. Different. Diana was already pacing. I've heard engines from Ferrari, from Lamborghini, from military jets that break the sound barrier. I've never heard anything like that. Not once. Not ever. Silence on the line. 6 a.m. My office. Don't be late. She hung up. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard that sound. Saw Marcus Webb's face as he walked away. No triumph, no satisfaction, no revenge. Just sadness. Derek was waiting at 5:45. A thin folder sat on Diana's desk. She grabbed it, started reading. Marcus Webb, 52, born in Boston, Irish-American working-class family, bachelor's in mechanical engineering from... She stopped. MIT. Derek nodded. Keep reading. Master's from Stanford. Diana looked up. What the hell? It gets better. After Stanford, he spent 12 years at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Propulsion systems for deep space missions. Published papers. Won awards. The guy was a rising star. Diana's coffee cup hit the desk hard. Then what is he doing mopping my floors? That's the thing. Derek leaned forward. 15 years ago, he just disappears, leaves NASA, drops off the grid completely. No publications, no patents, no employment records, nothing. Then 4 years ago, he shows up here with a fake resume listing him as a high school dropout. A fake resume. Nobody investigates janitors, Diana. She stared at the folder. NASA engineer, propulsion specialist, hiding in her building for 4 years, mopping floors, emptying trash, invisible. Why? Derek reached across the desk, handed her an old newspaper article. I found this, from right before he disappeared. The headline punched Diana in the chest. Aerospace engineer's wife loses battle with cancer. A photograph. Marcus Webb, younger, thinner. Eyes hollow with grief. Standing beside a woman in a hospital bed. The woman was smiling. Despite the tubes, despite the shadows under her eyes. Her name was Elena Webb, also an engineer. Dead at 41. Diana read the article twice. 3 times. The couple had been working on something together. Some kind of advanced propulsion system. The article mentioned it briefly. A revolutionary energy recycling engine. But no other details. No patents filed. No follow-up. Like the whole thing just vanished. Diana set down the article. I want surveillance footage. Every camera in the parking lot. I want to see what he does with that car. Derek hesitated. Diana, do it. The footage arrived that evening. Diana locked her office door. Watched alone. First video, Marcus arriving at 5:30 a.m. Parking in the far corner. Same spot every day. Second video, Marcus leaving at 11 p.m. 3 hours after his shift ended. He didn't go straight home. He walked to the trunk, pulled out a toolbox, popped the hood. Diana leaned closer to the screen. Marcus was working on the engine, adjusting components, connecting wires, checking gauges on a handheld device. This wasn't maintenance. This was engineering. She fast-forwarded through 3 weeks of footage. Same pattern every night. 2-3 hours of work. Then he'd drive home. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. Then she found it. 11 days ago. 11:47 p.m. Marcus disconnected the fuel line from the engine. Diana held her breath. He stepped back. Started the car. The engine ran. No fuel line connected. The engine ran for 10 minutes before Marcus shut it down. Diana paused the video. Her hands were trembling. My God. Her voice came out a whisper. What did you build? The next morning, Diana called Marcus into her office. He stood near the door, still in his coveralls, ready to flee. Sit down. He didn't move. Please. Slowly, he lowered himself into the chair. Diana studied him, the exhaustion in his face, the weight he carried. I did some research on you. Marcus's expression didn't change. MIT, Stanford, NASA, 12 years designing propulsion systems, awards, publications. Diana leaned forward. You were brilliant. You could have worked anywhere. SpaceX, Boeing, Lockheed. Why are you pushing a mop around my building? I needed a job. Bullshit. The word hung in the air. That engine in your car. I've never heard anything like it. Nobody has. Diana's voice hardened. What is it? Just an old car. Then sell it to me. Silence. 50,000, cash, today. No. 100,000. No. 200,000. Marcus stood up. I should get back to work. $500,000. Diana rose from her chair. $500,000 for a rusted piece of junk. Nobody says no to that. Marcus turned to face her. Something shifted in his eyes. The exhaustion replaced by something harder. You don't understand, do you? Explain it to me. That car is all I have left of my wife. His voice was quiet, Sharp. Every time I turn that key, I hear her voice. Every mile I drive, I feel her beside me. You can't buy that. Not for $500,000. Not for $500 million. Diana felt something twist in her chest. She pushed it down. Everyone has a price, Marcus. No. He shook his head. Everyone doesn't. Some things are sacred. But you wouldn't understand that. You've never lost anything that couldn't be replaced. He walked to the door, then stopped. I know who your father was, Diana. She froze. I know what he did. What he built. Marcus's back was still turned. And I know what he destroyed to build it. What are you talking about? He opened the door. Ask yourself why a NASA engineer would spend 4 years mopping your floors. Ask yourself why he'd park that car in your lot every single day. Ask yourself what he was waiting for. The door closed behind him. Diana stood alone in her office. Her father, William Ashford, dead 7 years now. He'd built this company from nothing, left her a fortune, a legacy. But he'd never talked about the early years, never explained where the first patents came from, who he'd worked with before. There are things you don't need to know, he'd told her once, things that don't matter anymore. They mattered now. Diana could feel it, something buried, something rotten, rising to the surface. 3 days later, Diana made her decision. She called Derek into her office. Fire him. Derek's head snapped up. What? Marcus Webb, gone by noon. Diana, he hasn't done anything wrong. I don't need a reason. I'm the CEO. Derek stared at her. Something flickered across his face. Disgust, maybe disappointment. This is a mistake. Did I ask for your opinion? No. But I'm giving it anyway. Derek stood his ground. That man has worked here for 4 years without a single complaint. Whatever's going on with his car, whatever history he has, firing him like this is wrong. And it's going to blow up in your face. Diana's eyes went cold. Are you finished? Diana. Are you finished? Derek held her gaze for 3 long seconds. Then he looked away. Security will escort him out. Make sure he doesn't take anything. Derek walked to the door, stopped with his hand on the handle. Your father did something to that man. I don't know what, but I watched him operate for 20 years, and I know when someone's carrying that kind of weight. He didn't turn around. You're making the same mistakes he did, and one day you're going to pay for it. The door closed. Diana stood at her window and watched the parking lot. At 11:47 a.m., 2 security guards escorted Marcus Webb across the asphalt. He didn't look back, didn't make a scene, just opened the car door, slid into the driver's seat, turned the key. That sound filled the air one last time. Beautiful. Impossible. Alive. Then he drove away. Diana watched until the Mustang disappeared. She thought she'd won. She thought getting rid of him would make the problem disappear. She had no idea she'd just lit the fuse on a bomb that would destroy everything her father built. 6 days. That's how long Diana thought she had control. 6 days of telling herself she'd made the right call. 6 days of pushing Marcus Webb out of her mind. 6 days of pretending that rusted Mustang and its impossible engine had nothing to do with her. Then her phone rang at 3 a.m. Patricia Reeves, head of engineering, the only person Diana actually respected in the entire company. Turn on the news. Channel 4. Now. Diana fumbled for the remote. Her bedroom was dark. The TV flickered to life. A press conference. Small podium. Simple backdrop. Modest production values. And at the center stood Marcus Webb. Diana stopped breathing. He looked different. Clean-shaven. Simple suit. His eyes were clear and focused. The exhaustion replaced by something else. Purpose. His voice came through the speakers calm and measured. I'm pleased to announce that Aurora Dynamics has received federal funding of $22 million for the development of our clean energy propulsion system. Diana's hand went to her chest. This technology, which my late wife Elena and I developed together over 15 years ago, has the potential to revolutionize not just aerospace but transportation as a whole. The camera pulled back to show a room full of reporters, notepads out, recorders running. The Aurora engine is a self-sustaining power system that recycles its own energy output. In laboratory conditions, our prototype has run continuously for 72 hours without any external fuel source. Diana grabbed her phone. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely dial. Derek answered on the second ring. "You're watching. How is this possible? How does he have federal funding? How does he have a company?" "I don't know. But Diana, he was mopping my floors a week ago." "Diana, listen to me. There's something else." On the TV, a reporter shouted above the others. "Mr. Webb, is it true that this technology was stolen from you 15 years ago?" Diana's blood turned to ice. Marcus paused. His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "There will be a time to discuss the history of this technology. For now, I want to focus on the future, on what the Aurora engine can do for the world." He looked directly into the camera. "My wife believed this technology could help people. That's what matters. That's what I'm here to honor." Diana muted the television. "Derek, what did that reporter mean?" Stolen silence on the line. "Derek, I think you need to call Richard Morrison." Diana's stomach dropped. Richard Morrison, her father's oldest friend, the man who'd been there from the beginning, the man who'd given the eulogy at her father's funeral. "Why? Because if anyone knows what your father did 15 years ago, it's him." Diana ended the call. She sat in the dark staring at the muted television. Marcus Webb was still speaking, still calm, still measured, still holding a grenade with her family's name on it. She picked up the phone and dialed Richard's number. He answered on the third ring, voice groggy with sleep. "Diana, it's 3 in the morning. Tell me about Marcus Webb." Silence. "Richard, tell me about Marcus Webb." More silence. Then a long, heavy sigh. "How much do you know?" "I know he worked at NASA. I know his wife died. I know he had a technology that someone stole from him 15 years ago." Diana's voice hardened. "What I need to know is whether that someone was my father." The silence that followed felt like it would never end. Finally, Richard spoke. "I think you'd better come to my house. There are some files your father left with me. Files he never wanted you to see." Diana was in her car before he finished speaking. Richard Morrison lived in a mansion in Atherton, 20 minutes from Stanford. He'd known Diana since she was a child, bounced her on his knee, taught her to ride a bike, given the eulogy at her father's funeral. Now he stood at his front door at 4 a.m. in a bathrobe holding a manila folder that seemed to weigh more than the world. "Your father was a complicated man," Richard said as Diana pushed past him into the house. "Brilliant, ruthless, capable of great kindness and great cruelty, sometimes in the same breath." Diana spun to face him. "Did he steal the Aurora engine?" Richard sat down heavily in a leather chair. He suddenly looked every one of his 73 years. "Steal is a strong word. Did he or didn't he?" Richard handed her the folder. "But yes, in essence, yes." Diana tore it open. Documents, legal papers, patent applications, and a handwritten letter in her father's unmistakable script. She started reading. 10 minutes later she looked up. Her face was pale, her hands were trembling. "He destroyed them. Marcus and his wife. They came to my father for funding for partnership, and he took everything." Richard reached out and took her hand. He saw an opportunity. A young couple with no money, no connections, no way to defend themselves, and technology that could be worth billions. "Your father was many things, Diana, but sentimental wasn't one of them." Diana stared at the letter in her hands. The handwriting was clear, precise, businesslike. Acquired Webb thermal regeneration patents. Legal team estimates settlement cost at $2.3 million to suppress all claims, worth billions in long-term applications. Webb will never recover financially or professionally. Project Aurora terminated. Technology secured. Her father's words, her father's sin, and now his daughter's inheritance. I mocked him. Diana's voice came out broken. I humiliated him in front of the whole company. I fired him, and the whole time he knew what my father did, and he never said a word. The question now, Richard said gently, is what are you going to do about it? Diana looked at the folder, the evidence of her family's betrayal, the truth she could no longer escape. I don't know. She shook her head. I don't know what to do. The sun was starting to rise through Richard's study windows, golden light, like a judgment. There's something else you should know, Richard said. Your father couldn't use the technology. Diana looked up. What do you mean? He had his engineers study those patents for years, built prototype after prototype. Nothing worked. The blueprints were incomplete. Richard leaned forward. Marcus and Elena kept the critical components in their heads, not on paper. Without their cooperation, the technology was useless. So he stole something he couldn't even use. He stole it so no one else could use it. That was enough for him. Diana felt sick. But Marcus still has the original, she said slowly. The working prototype. It's been in his car this whole time. Yes. And now he has federal funding. He has a company. He's going to build it. He's going to change the world with the technology my father tried to bury. Richard nodded. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Diana stood up, grabbed the folder. I need to think. She walked to the door, then stopped. Richard, why are you telling me all this? You could have protected my father's legacy. You could have kept quiet. Richard looked at her with eyes that had seen too much, done too much, regretted too much. Because your father spent his whole life taking things from people who couldn't fight back. He died rich and powerful and completely alone. Richard's voice cracked. I loved him like a brother, Diana, but I'm not proud of what I helped him do, and I won't watch you make the same mistakes. Diana walked out into the morning sun. The folder felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She drove back to San Francisco in a daze. The city was waking up around her. Joggers on the Embarcadero, coffee shops opening, normal people living normal lives. She pulled into the Ashford Aerospace parking lot. Empty now. Too early for executives, too late for janitors. Her eyes went to the corner of the lot, the spot where the Mustang used to park. Gone. But not forgotten. Diana sat in her car for a long time, staring at that empty space. Her phone buzzed, then buzzed again, then started ringing. Board members, investors, reporters. She ignored them all. Finally, she got out and walked into the building, past the lobby where Marcus used to mop, past the conference room where she'd held court, up to her corner office with its view of the entire Bay Area. She sat at her desk and opened the folder again. Her father's handwriting stared back at her. Webb will never recover financially or professionally, but he had recovered. He'd spent 15 years waiting, planning, building, and now he was going to destroy everything William Ashford had created, unless Diana destroyed him first. She picked up her phone and called Patricia Reeves. Get me everything you can on the Aurora engine. Every patent my father acquired 15 years ago. Every file, every document, every scrap of paper that mentions Marcus Webb or Elena Webb or thermal regeneration technology. Patricia hesitated. Diana, what's going on? Just do it. She hung up and called Derek. I need the best engineers in the company. Conference room, 2 hours. Diana, the board is calling an emergency meeting. They want to talk about the Webb announcement. The board can wait. They're talking about the stock price. It's already down 8% in pre-market trading. Diana closed her eyes. I don't care about the stock price. You should. If this gets worse. I said I don't care. Diana's voice cracked. Get me the engineers. 2 hours. And Derek, don't mention any of this to the board. Not yet. She ended the call. For a long moment she sat in silence. Then she opened her laptop and started searching. Aurora Dynamics. Federal grant announcements. Clean energy propulsion systems. The news was everywhere. Revolutionary engine technology could transform aviation. Former NASA engineer announces clean energy breakthrough. Is this the future of transportation? And buried in the coverage, the question that kept appearing. Who is Marcus Webb, and what happened to his technology 15 years ago? Diana read everything she could find. Marcus had filed for incorporation 3 days after she fired him. The federal grant had been in process for months. He'd been working with government agencies, building relationships, laying groundwork. All while mopping her floors. All while parking that Mustang in her lot. All while watching, waiting, planning. "You son of a bitch," Diana whispered. "You were never invisible. You were just biding your time." 2 hours later, Diana stood at the head of the conference table. Patricia Reeves sat closest to her, looking tired and confused. David Kim from Propulsion was there. The heads of Materials, Science Advanced Systems, Regulatory Affairs. 8 of the best engineers in the company. All of them wondering why they'd been pulled from their regular work. Diana closed the door. "What I'm about to show you doesn't leave this room. Anyone who violates that confidentiality will be terminated immediately and sued into oblivion. Understood?" Nervous nods around the table. Diana pulled up the security footage on the wall screen. The same footage she'd watched in her office. Marcus working on his car. The engine running without fuel. That impossible sound. This is Marcus Webb. Until recently, he worked here as a janitor. Before that, he was a propulsion engineer at NASA. And that engine you're looking at is called the Aurora. Patricia leaned forward. That's not possible. The laws of thermodynamics. I know what the laws say. I also know what I'm seeing. That engine runs without external fuel. I've watched it happen. David Kim shifted uncomfortably. There must be a hidden power source, a battery, something we're not seeing. Maybe, but I don't think so. Diana paused the video. I want you to study these images. Every angle, every frame. I want you to figure out what he built and how he built it. Then I want you to replicate it. Silence fell across the table. Patricia spoke slowly, carefully. You want us to reverse engineer his technology from security camera footage? Yes. Even if we could figure out the basic design, there's no way we could replicate the materials, the tolerances, the specific configurations. Engineering doesn't work like that. You can't just look at a picture of something and build it. Then find another way. Diana's voice hardened. I want a working prototype in 30 days. David Kim exchanged glances with the others. Diana, we don't have any patents on regenerative energy systems. We'd be starting from scratch. Yes, we do. The room went still. Diana pulled up another file. Documents she'd found in the folder Richard had given her. My father acquired patents in this area 15 years ago. They're buried in our IP holdings. Find them. Use them. I don't care what it takes. Patricia stared at the screen. These patents, where did they come from? That's not your concern. Diana, 30 days. Get it done. The team filed out their faces, troubled. Patricia lingered at the door. This is wrong. Diana looked up. Excuse me? Whatever your father did to get those patents, whatever you're trying to do now, it's wrong. I can feel it. Patricia held Diana's gaze. Marcus Webb was a good man. He worked here for 4 years without a complaint. And now you're trying to steal his technology, again. I'm trying to protect this company. No, you're trying to protect yourself. Patricia shook her head. I'll do what you ask, but I want it on record that I objected. She walked out. Diana sat alone in the conference room, surrounded by the ghosts of her father's sins. 3 weeks passed. The engineering team worked around the clock. Patricia pulled the buried patents from the archives and spent days trying to understand the basic principles. David Kim's propulsion team built their first prototype in week 2. It failed immediately. The energy loop collapsed within seconds. The system overheated and shut down. They rebuilt it. Failed again. Rebuilt. Failed. By week 3, they'd gone through 11 prototypes. Each one got a little closer. Each one ultimately fell apart. Diana summoned Patricia to her office late one night. "Where are we?" Patricia looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. Coffee stains on her lab coat. "The problem is the regenerative cycle. In theory, the engine captures waste energy and feeds it back into the system, creating a near-perpetual loop. But in practice, there's always loss. Heat dissipation. Friction. Electromagnetic interference. The system degrades faster than it can regenerate." Marcus figured it out. His engine runs for hours without degrading. "I know. And I can't explain it." Patricia rubbed her eyes. "There's something in his design we're not seeing. Some component or material or configuration that these patents don't describe. Without that missing piece, we're just guessing." "Then guess better." "I've been an engineer for 25 years, Diana. I've worked on projects for NASA, for Boeing, for 3 different governments. I'm telling you this technology is at least 30 years ahead of anything we understand. Whoever built that engine wasn't just smart. They were operating on a level we can't even comprehend." Diana stared at the latest failed prototype on the test bench, still smoking slightly. "There has to be a way." "There is." Patricia hesitated. "We could ask him." "No." "Diana." "I said no." Patricia stood up. "Then I can't help you. We've tried everything. We've run every simulation. We've tested every configuration. Without Marcus Webb's cooperation, this technology is beyond our reach." She walked to the door. "Your father spent 15 years sitting on these patents. He couldn't make them work either. Maybe you should ask yourself why he was so determined to keep them buried, even if he couldn't use them." The door closed behind her. Diana sat alone in her office, surrounded by failure. Outside, the city lights sparkled like mockery. Her phone buzzed. Another message from the board. Another demand for answers. Another threat. She ignored it. Instead, she pulled up the news. Aurora Dynamics was everywhere now. Investors lining up. Government agencies clamoring for partnerships. Marcus Webb on the cover of every tech magazine. And buried in every article, growing louder every day, the question that wouldn't go away. Is it true that this technology was stolen from Marcus Webb 15 years ago? Did William Ashford build his empire on theft? What did Diana Ashford know, and when did she know it? The bomb was ticking, and Diana had no idea how to stop it. 2 weeks later, the bomb exploded. Angela Torres, investigative journalist with the San Francisco Chronicle, Pulitzer Prize winner, the kind of reporter who didn't stop digging until she hit bone. Her front-page expose landed like a nuclear blast. Aerospace giant built on stolen dreams. Diana read the article on her phone at 5 a.m., coffee growing cold in her hand. It was thorough. Devastating. Torres had interviewed former employees from Ashford Aerospace's early days. She'd obtained internal documents through Freedom of Information requests. She'd tracked down Marcus Webb and gotten his first public statement in 15 years. "My wife and I spent 7 years developing the Aurora engine. We believed it could help solve the climate crisis. We approached William Ashford for funding and partnership. Instead, he stole our patents, destroyed our careers, and left us with nothing." Elena died believing her life's work had been buried forever. I'm here to prove she was wrong. The article detailed every legal maneuver William Ashford had used. The threats, the intimidation, the systematic destruction of Marcus and Elena Webb's professional reputations. And then in the final paragraphs, the killing blow. Sources within Ashford Aerospace confirm that the company has recently launched a secret effort to replicate Marcus Webb's technology using the stolen patents. CEO Diana Ashford, daughter of the late William Ashford, has reportedly ordered her engineering team to build a working prototype within 30 days, apparently hoping to beat Marcus Webb to market with his own invention. Diana's phone started ringing. Board members, investors, PR consultants. She ignored them all. By 9 a.m., Ashford Aerospace stock had dropped 18%. By noon, 3 major investors had requested emergency meetings. By 5 p.m., Diana's own board of directors had called for her resignation. She sat in her office as the sun set, watching her empire crumble. Every news channel was running the story. Social media was exploding with outrage. Justice for Marcus was trending worldwide. And the worst part, the part that made Diana want to scream, was that she deserved it. Every word in that article was true. Her father had stolen the technology. She had tried to steal it again. She was exactly what the world was calling her. Derek knocked on her door around 7 p.m. The board wants an answer by morning. They're prepared to vote you out if you don't resign voluntarily. Diana didn't turn from the window. What would you do? Honestly, I'd resign. Take a severance package. Disappear for a year or two until this blows over. You're young enough to reinvent yourself. Run away, you mean? Strategic retreat. There's a difference. Diana finally turned to face him. Something in her eyes had changed. Some hardness had cracked. My father ran away from what he did. He buried it and pretended it never happened. And look where that got us. Look where it got me. Diana, you can't fix this. The damage is done. Marcus Webb has federal funding, public sympathy, and a working technology. You have a failed replication effort and a PR nightmare. There's no path forward. Maybe not for the company. Diana walked to her desk and picked up her keys. But maybe there's a path forward for me. Derek stared at her. What are you talking about? I'm talking about doing something my father never did, something I've never done. She walked past him toward the door. I'm talking about telling the truth. Diana drove for 45 minutes. Aurora Dynamics operated out of a converted warehouse in Oakland. Modest building, simple signage, small parking lot. Through the window she could see lights burning despite the late hour. Engineers working, machines humming, progress being made. She parked her Mercedes beside the rusted Mustang. For a long moment, she sat there. Gathering courage she wasn't sure she possessed. Then she got out and walked to the front door. It was unlocked. She stepped inside and found herself in a workshop filled with engine parts, diagnostic equipment, and the organized chaos of serious innovation. A dozen engineers looked up from their work, surprised to see a stranger. And at the center of it all stood Marcus Webb. His hands were covered in grease. His eyes were fixed on Diana with an expression she couldn't read. Everyone out? His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. His engineers hesitated. Now. They filed past Diana without a word, glancing back over their shoulders as they went. In 30 seconds, the workshop was empty. Marcus wiped his hands on a rag, taking his time, letting the silence build. How did you find this place? It's listed in the federal grant documentation, public record. And you came here because... Diana took a breath that felt like it might be her last as the old version of herself. I came to apologize. Marcus didn't move. The word hung in the air between them. Apologize. Like it could fix 15 years of pain. Like it could bring back the dead. I read my father's files. Diana's voice shook despite her best efforts. I know what he did to you. To your wife. I know how he stole your work and destroyed your careers. I know he threatened you with lawsuits you couldn't afford to fight. I know he took everything. Marcus set down the rag. His eyes never left her face. And I'm sorry. Diana felt tears building behind her eyes. Not just for what he did, for what I did. I mocked you in front of the whole company. I tried to buy your car like it was just property. I fired you when you wouldn't give me what I wanted. And then I tried to steal your technology again, just like him. Is this supposed to make me feel better? No. Diana shook her head. This is supposed to be the truth. Something my family hasn't been very good at telling. Marcus leaned against a workbench. For a long moment, he just studied her. Those dark eyes searching for something. Your father came to see me once. Diana held her breath. About a year after he took the patents. Elena was already sick by then. We were drowning in medical bills. Couldn't afford lawyers. Couldn't afford to fight. Marcus's jaw tightened, and he showed up at our apartment in a $3,000 suit offering to make things right. What did he offer? $200,000. Hush money. Sign a confidentiality agreement. Walk away. Never speak of the Aurora engine again. Diana felt sick. Elena was dying. We needed that money. We could have used it for treatment, for comfort, for more time together. Marcus's voice cracked. You know what she said? Diana shook her head. She said, some things are worth more than money. Some things are worth more than survival. If we take his offer, we'll be dead inside long before the cancer finishes me off. Tears were streaming down Diana's face now. She died 3 months later. Marcus's eyes glistened. Never saw a dime of that money. Never saw her work validated. But she died with her integrity intact. I can't give back what my father took. Diana's voice broke completely. I can't bring Elena back. I can't undo 15 years of pain and injustice. But I can stop being the person I've been. I can stop being him. And how exactly do you plan to do that? I don't know yet. Diana wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I just know I had to start here, with you, with the truth. The workshop hummed around them, machines idling, fluorescent lights buzzing. Marcus was quiet for so long that Diana thought he might just tell her to leave. Then he walked to a shelf and pulled down a thick binder. Its pages yellowed with age. He held it for a moment, weighing it in his hands. You know what I remember most about Elena? Diana said nothing. She believed in second chances, not because people deserve them most of the time they don't, but because she believed that people can change, that the worst version of ourselves doesn't have to be the final version. He held the binder out to Diana. These are the original Aurora engine specifications, handwritten by me and Elena. Everything your father couldn't steal because we kept it in our heads. Diana stared at the binder like it might explode. Why would you give this to me? I'm not giving it to you. I'm testing you. Marcus's eyes were hard now, all the softness gone. Take this home. Study it. If you can understand what Elena and I built, not just the mechanics, but the philosophy, the reasoning, the heart of it, then maybe you're capable of being someone different than your father. And if I can't, then you'll prove you're exactly who I think you are, and this conversation will be the last we ever have. Diana reached out slowly and took the binder. It was heavier than she expected, dense with years of work and love and hope. How long do I have? As long as it takes. Marcus turned back to his work. Close the door on your way out. Diana drove through the Oakland night with the binder on the passenger seat. Her hands were shaking. Her mind was racing. She couldn't go back to her penthouse. Couldn't face those empty rooms and expensive furniture. Couldn't pretend to be the person she'd been yesterday. She pulled off Highway 101 at a 24-hour diner. Ordered coffee she didn't drink. Opened the binder. The first page hit her like a punch to the chest. In elegant handwriting, a woman's handwriting. Elena's handwriting were the words, "For Marcus. For our future. For everyone who needs light in the darkness." Diana stared at that dedication for a long time. This wasn't just engineering. This was love. This was hope. This was everything her father had tried to destroy and failed. She turned the page and started reading. The mathematics were brutal. Diana had studied engineering in college, sat through countless technical presentations, had enough background to understand most of what crossed her desk. But this was different. This was genius on a level she'd never encountered. Every equation built on the one before. Every diagram contained layers of meaning. Marcus and Elena hadn't just designed an engine, they'd created a philosophy of energy, a new way of thinking about power and motion and sustainability. By 3 a.m., Diana's head was pounding. She'd filled half a legal pad with notes, most of them questions she couldn't answer. The waitress had refilled her coffee 4 times and was starting to give her concerned looks. Diana didn't care. She kept reading. Around 5 a.m., she found the section labeled Core Principles in Marcus's handwriting. The Aurora engine is not about creating energy from nothing. That's impossible. It's about respect, respecting the energy that already exists, capturing what would otherwise be lost, treating waste as opportunity. Elena always said that the universe doesn't have a scarcity problem. It has a wisdom problem. We throw away more than we use. The Aurora changes that. Diana read those words 3 times, respecting the energy that already exists. She thought about her own life, the energy she'd wasted on appearances, on competition, on proving herself to people who didn't matter, the opportunities she'd thrown away because they didn't fit her image of success, the relationships she'd burned because maintaining them required effort she wasn't willing to give. She'd been living her whole life like a wasteful engine, losing more than she used. The sun was rising by the time she left the diner. She drove to a storage facility in Menlo Park, rented the largest unit available, started making calls. Patricia Reeves answered on the 3rd ring, sounding half asleep. "Diana, what's going on?" "I need equipment, machine tools, diagnostic systems, everything we use for the prototype attempts." "Diana, the board is meeting in 3 hours. They're going to vote you out." "I know. You have to be there. You have to defend yourself." "No, I don't." Diana's voice was steady now, certain. "I'm done defending who I was. I'm going to become someone worth defending." "Diana, send me the equipment, Patricia. I'll pay for it myself." She hung up before Patricia could argue. Over the next 6 hours, Diana transformed the storage unit into a workshop. She maxed out 3 credit cards buying parts and materials, downloaded software, watched tutorial videos, read technical manuals until her eyes burned. At 2 p.m., her phone buzzed with a news alert. Hayes Aerospace Board removes CEO Diana Ashford in unanimous vote. She read the headline, set down her phone, got back to work. The first prototype took 8 days. It was ugly, clumsy. The welds were uneven, the connections imprecise. Diana's hands, soft from years of signing documents and shaking hands at cocktail parties, were blistered and cut. She'd burned herself twice with the soldering iron, hit her thumb with a hammer hard enough to turn the nail black. Spent one entire night crying in frustration when a circuit board she'd assembled over 12 hours turned out to be wired backward. But she kept going. She slept on an air mattress in the corner, ate takeout from the Chinese place down the street, sometimes forgetting to eat at all until hunger made her hands shake. Showered at a truck stop 3 blocks away. Talked to no one except delivery drivers. On day 8, she connected the power cell and turned on her prototype. It ran for 4 seconds before the energy loop collapsed. Diana sat on the concrete floor staring at the smoking wreckage. She went back to the binder. Read the section on energy loop stabilization 3 more times. Found a notation in Elena's handwriting that she'd missed before. The key is patience. The system needs time to find its rhythm. Don't force it. Guide it. Don't force it. Guide it. Diana thought about how she'd lived her whole life. Forcing, demanding, taking, never guiding, never waiting, never trusting anything to develop naturally. She rebuilt the prototype. Took her time. paid attention to the rhythm Elena described. When she connected the power cell again, she didn't slam the switch. She eased it gently, like coaxing a frightened animal. The engine ran for 30 seconds, then 45, then a minute and 12 seconds before it failed. Progress. 3 weeks into her exile, Richard Morrison found her. He stood in the doorway of the storage unit staring at the chaos inside. The scattered tools, the failed prototypes, the sleeping bag in the corner. The woman who used to run a $4 billion company, now wearing stained coveralls and a ponytail, held together with a rubber band. "My God!" Richard's voice was barely a whisper. "What have you done to yourself?" Diana didn't look up from the circuit board she was soldering. "I'm learning." "Learning what?" "How to destroy your life." "I'm not destroying it. I'm rebuilding it." Richard walked closer, stepping carefully around the debris. He picked up Elena's binder, flipped through the pages, set it down. "He gave you this." "He's testing me." Diana finally looked up. Her eyes were bloodshot, exhausted. But there was something in them Richard had never seen before. "If I can build the engine, he'll know I'm serious about changing. And if you can't, then I'll keep trying until I can." Richard sat down heavily on a metal stool. "The board is talking about criminal charges. They're saying you orchestrated the cover-up of your father's theft, that you knew about the stolen patents for years, securities fraud, intellectual property theft, conspiracy. You're looking at prison time." "Let them charge me." "Diana, I don't care anymore." She set down the soldering iron, gave Richard her full attention. "I spent my whole life caring about the wrong things. Stock prices, board meetings, what people thought of me, what my father thought of me. And where did it get me? I was the CEO of a company built on stolen dreams, and I didn't even know it." She held up the circuit board, examining it in the light. "This is real. This work, this challenge. For the first time in my life, I'm trying to build something instead of take something. And even if I fail, even if I go to prison, at least I'll know I tried to be different than him." Richard was quiet for a long moment. "Your father would have called you a fool." "I know. He would have said you're throwing away everything he built. He built it on lies. It was never worth keeping." Richard reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "Before I came here, I liquidated some of my own holdings. Cash. Untraceable. About 80,000. It should keep you going for a while." Diana stared at the envelope. "Why?" "Because I failed your father once. I watched him do terrible things and said nothing." Richard's voice cracked. "I won't make the same mistake with you." He pressed the envelope into her hands. "Be better than him, Diana. That's all I ask." He walked to the door, paused without turning around. "For what it's worth, I think Elena Webb would have liked you. The person you're becoming, not the person you were." Then he was gone. Diana sat alone with her work, her binder, her failures, and the ghost of a woman she'd never met. The breakthrough came on day 37. Diana had rebuilt the prototype 9 times. Each version got a little better, ran a little longer. She'd learned to read Elena's handwriting like a second language, to anticipate Marcus's logic, to understand the philosophy behind every design choice. And finally, something clicked. It wasn't dramatic. No lightning bolt of inspiration, no sudden revelation. Just a quiet understanding that had been building for weeks, pieces falling into place, one by one, until the whole picture became clear. The Aurora engine wasn't just about energy recapture. It was about harmony. Every component had to work with every other component, not against it. The system couldn't be forced or dominated. It had to be balanced, guided, respected, just like Elena had written. Diana made one final adjustment, a small change to the energy flow regulator, something she'd overlooked a dozen times before. She connected the power cell, held her breath, turned the key. The engine started. Smooth. Quiet. Perfect. Diana watched the diagnostic readouts, waiting for the collapse, waiting for the overheat warning, waiting for failure. 5 minutes passed. 10, 20. The energy loop held. The system recycled its own output, feeding back into itself, sustaining motion without external fuel. It wasn't perpetual. Nothing was perpetual, but it was close, closer than anything she'd ever seen. Diana sat down on the concrete floor and cried. Not from exhaustion, though she was exhausted. Not from relief, though she was relieved. She cried because for the first time in her life, she had built something real, something true, something that mattered. And she cried because she understood now what Marcus had lost. The woman who had written those notes, who had dreamed these dreams, who had poured her heart into this impossible vision. She was gone, and all the money and power in the world couldn't bring her back. Diana cried for Elena Webb, a woman she'd never known and could never thank, and somewhere in those tears she found the person she wanted to become. She called Marcus the next morning. It works. Silence on the other end. The engine. I built it. It's been running for 14 hours. More silence. Did you hear me? I said. I heard you. Marcus's voice was strange, guarded, but something else too, something that might have been surprise. You actually did it. I want to show you. I want you to see that I understand what you and Elena created, not just the mechanics, the meaning, the philosophy. Why does that matter to you? Diana gripped the phone tighter. Because I need you to see that I'm not my father. I need anyone to believe that people can change, that I can change. More silence. Then his voice came back, softer, but still careful. Where are you? She gave him the address. I'll be there in 2 hours. Don't touch anything. Marcus arrived exactly when he said he would. He walked into the storage unit without speaking. His eyes moved across the chaos. The failed prototypes in the corner. The tools scattered across workbenches. The binder lying open to a page covered in Diana's handwritten notes. Then he saw the engine, still running. That smooth, quiet hum filling the space like music. The diagnostic screens showed stable readings. The energy loop holding perfectly. Marcus walked closer. He examined every connection, every circuit, every component. He checked the readings, ran his own diagnostics, monitored the system for any sign of degradation. 15 minutes passed in silence. Finally, he turned to face Diana. How long did this take you? 37 days. And you built it alone, no help from anyone. No help, just the binder and a lot of trial and error. Marcus looked back at the engine. His expression was unreadable, but his hands were trembling slightly. This configuration, the adjustment you made to the flow regulator. He pointed at a specific component. It's not in the binder. Diana nodded. I know. I figured it out on my own. It's based on something Elena wrote in the margins. About harmony. About every component working with every other component. I realized the original design had a small imbalance in the feedback loop. The change corrects it. Marcus stared at her. You improved it. His voice was barely a whisper. You actually improved our design. I didn't mean to. I was just trying to make it work. No. Marcus shook his head slowly. Elena and I spent 7 years on this engine. We knew that imbalance was there. But we couldn't figure out how to fix it. And you found the answer in 37 days. Diana didn't know what to say. Marcus walked to the binder and picked it up. He flipped through the pages slowly, looking at Diana's notes, her calculations, her questions and answers written in the margins alongside Elena's original text. She would have liked this. Elena. His voice cracked. She would have liked seeing her work continue, seeing someone else understand what we were trying to do. I wish I could have met her. So do I. Marcus set down the binder and turned to face Diana fully. You know what she told me once, right before she died? Diana shook her head. She said that the Aurora engine wasn't just about energy, it was about faith. Faith that the universe gives us what we need if we're wise enough to accept it. Faith that waste can become wealth and loss can become gain. Marcus paused. Diana saw tears gathering in his eyes. She said that someday the right person would find our work and carry it forward. Someone who understood that technology isn't about power. It's about service, about helping people. Diana felt tears burning in her own eyes. I'm not sure I'm that person. No, you're not. Marcus's voice was gentle now, almost kind. Not yet, but you might be becoming her, and that's more than I ever expected. He reached out his hand. Diana stared at it. I need a partner. Marcus's voice was steady. Aurora Dynamics is growing faster than I can handle alone. The federal grant is just the beginning. We've got interest from airlines, from governments, from companies all over the world. I need someone who understands the technology, who believes in the mission, and who has the skills to navigate the business side of things. You want me to work with you. I want to give you a chance to prove who you are. Not your father's daughter, not the CEO who fired me, but the woman who spent 37 days in a storage unit destroying her hands and her reputation and her pride just to understand what two people built out of love. Diana looked at his hand. Rough, calloused, the hand of a man who had lost everything and refused to give up. She thought about her own hands, blistered now, scarred, transformed. She took his hand and shook it. I'll work harder than anyone you've ever met. I'll do whatever it takes to earn this. I know you will. Marcus released her hand and walked toward the door. At the threshold, he stopped and turned back. Shut down the engine and pack your things. You start tomorrow. Marcus? He waited. Thank you for giving me the chance, for believing I could change. For the first time since she'd met him, something that might have been a smile crossed Marcus's face. Don't thank me yet. The hard part is just beginning. Then he walked out into the morning sun. Diana stood alone with the engine and the binder and the future she was finally ready to build. Diana showed up at Aurora Dynamics at 6 a.m. the next morning, 3 hours before anyone else arrived. The door was locked, so she sat on the concrete steps outside and waited. The Oakland fog hung thick over the street. Cold seeped through her jacket. She pulled it tighter and watched her breath form clouds in the morning air. A car pulled into the lot at 6:47. The Mustang, still carrying its impossible secret under that battered hood. Marcus got out and stopped when he saw her. You're early. I couldn't sleep. That'll pass. He walked past her and unlocked the door. Come on. I'll show you where you'll be working. Diana followed him through the workshop past the workbenches and diagnostic equipment to a small office in the back corner. This was supposed to be a supply closet, but we needed the space. Marcus gestured at the cramped room. You'll share it with our CFO, if we ever hire one. Diana looked around. A metal desk, 2 folding chairs, an ancient computer, a single window looking out at the parking lot. The smallest office she'd ever seen. It's perfect. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You used to have a corner office with a view of the entire Bay Area. I used to be a lot of things. Diana set her bag on the desk, met his gaze without flinching. What do you need me to do? For the next 3 months, Diana learned what it meant to build something from nothing. She answered phones when the receptionist was overwhelmed, filed paperwork the government required in triplicate, negotiated with suppliers who didn't return calls because they'd never heard of Aurora Dynamics. She learned to fix the coffee maker when it broke, unclog the toilet when the plumber wanted $300 just to show up, stay late reconciling spreadsheets because they couldn't afford an accountant. The other engineers didn't trust her. They'd all heard the stories. The CEO who mocked their boss in a parking lot. The heiress who tried to steal their technology. They watched her with suspicious eyes, waiting for the mask to slip. Diana didn't blame them. She just kept working, kept showing up at 6 a.m., kept staying until midnight, kept doing whatever needed to be done without complaint. One night, about 6 weeks in, she was alone in the workshop running diagnostics on a new prototype. The building was dark except for her workstation. Everyone else had gone home. Marcus appeared beside her. "It's midnight. Go home." "I want to finish these tests. The Boeing meeting is in 3 days. If we don't have solid data..." "The tests can wait." His voice was gentle but firm. "You've been here since 6 this morning. You've been here since 6 every morning for 6 weeks. When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" Diana tried to remember and couldn't. Marcus pulled up a chair and sat down beside her. "You're going to burn out. Then you'll be useless to everyone, including yourself." "I can't stop," Diana's voice cracked. "Every time I slow down, I think about everything I did. Everything my father did. I think about how many years you lost because of us. How Elena died without ever seeing her work recognized. I can't just go home and watch TV and pretend everything's okay." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Let me tell you something about Elena." Diana looked up. "When she was dying, when we both knew she only had a few weeks left, I wanted to spend every minute at her bedside. I wanted to hold her hand and tell her I loved her, and make up for all the time we'd lost fighting for the patents. Fighting against your father. Fighting to survive." He paused. "You know what she said?" Diana shook her head. "She said, 'Marcus, if you sit here watching me die, you will die too. Not physically, but inside. You'll carry this grief like a weight until it crushes you.'" Marcus's voice cracked. "She made me promise to take breaks, to eat meals, to sleep, to live." Diana felt tears on her cheeks. "She said that guilt is just another form of selfishness. When we punish ourselves, we're making everything about us. Our pain, our redemption, our story. But real change isn't about punishment. It's about service. It's about taking the energy we'd waste on guilt and using it to help someone else." "How do you do that?" Diana's whisper barely carried across the space between them. "How do you stop feeling guilty for something that can never be fixed? You don't stop feeling it. You just learn to carry it differently." Marcus gestured at the prototype on the bench. "Like the engine. You don't eliminate the waste. You transform it. You turn it into something useful." Diana looked at the prototype, the smooth curves, the precise components. Elena's design improved by Diana's hands carried forward by Marcus's faith. "I don't know if I can do this. Be the person you need me to be. The person Elena would have wanted." "Neither do I." Marcus stood up. "But I'm willing to find out. Are you?" Diana nodded. Marcus walked toward the door, then stopped halfway. "Go home. Get some sleep. Come back tomorrow, ready to transform your waste into something useful." Something shifted between them in that moment. Not romance, not yet, but the foundation of trust that would make romance possible. The Boeing meeting changed everything. Diana had spent weeks preparing. Financial projections, technical specifications, market analyses, risk assessments. She'd rehearsed her presentation until she could deliver it in her sleep. But when the Boeing executives walked into the Aurora Dynamics workshop, led by a silver-haired woman named Catherine Wells, who looked like she'd forgotten more about aerospace than most people would ever learn, they didn't want PowerPoint slides. "We've read your materials." Catherine's voice carried the weight of 32 years in an industry that didn't suffer fools. "Impressive numbers. But numbers can be manipulated. Show us something real." Marcus looked at Diana. Diana looked at the Mustang. "Follow me." She led the Boeing team outside to where the car sat in the morning sun. Rust gleaming, paint faded, looking like something that belonged in a junkyard. Catherine Wells wrinkled her nose. "This is your demonstration." This is the original. The first Aurora engine ever built. It's been running for 15 years in this car. It's survived cross-country trips, California summers, freezing winters. It's never needed a major repair. Diana paused. And it's never needed fuel. Never needed fuel. Catherine's skepticism came through sharp and clear. That's quite a claim. Watch. Diana opened the hood. The Boeing engineers crowded around examining the components. Diana pointed out the energy recapture systems, the regenerative loops, the harmonized flow regulators she'd refined in that storage unit. Marcus connected the monitoring equipment while Diana climbed into the driver's seat. She turned the key. The engine sang. That perfect, impossible sound filled the parking lot. The Boeing engineers stared at their tablets, watching the data flow, energy in, energy recycled, energy out. A loop that sustained itself, that grew stronger over time instead of weaker. One of the engineers whispered something that sounded like prayer. That's not possible. And yet, Diana's response came quiet but absolute. There it is. The demonstration lasted an hour. Diana answered every question, explained every component, walked through every technical detail without overselling or exaggerating. She just told the truth about what Marcus and Elena had built, and what it could do. When it was over, Catherine Wells stood in silence for a long moment, staring at the Mustang. I've been in this industry for 32 years. I've seen a lot of people promise miracles. Most of them were lying. A few were delusional. She shook her head slowly. But this is real. It's real, and we're ready to scale it. Catherine turned to face Diana fully. I know who you are, Miss Ashford. I know what your father did. I know what you did. There are people at Boeing who think we shouldn't be anywhere near you or this company. Diana's stomach tightened, but she held Catherine's gaze. What do you think? I think people can change. I think technology doesn't care about politics or history or family legacies. Catherine extended her hand. Boeing is prepared to offer an exclusive partnership agreement. $10 billion over 5 years. In exchange for first-mover access to the Aurora technology. $10 billion. Diana felt dizzy. This was more money than she'd ever handled at Ashford Aerospace, more than her father's entire company had been worth when he died. But it wasn't the money that made her hands shake. It was the validation. The proof that Elena's dream could survive, could flourish, could change the world exactly the way she'd hoped. We'll need to discuss terms, of course. Diana shook Catherine's hand. Of course. Catherine's grip was firm, her eyes harder than steel. But Diana, don't make us regret this. There won't be a second chance. 3 weeks after the Boeing deal was announced, Diana called a press conference. She stood backstage in a modest conference center in downtown San Francisco. Simple black suit, no jewelry, nothing that would remind anyone of the woman she used to be. Her hands were shaking. Marcus stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. You don't have to do this. We could settle the lawsuit privately. Find another way. No. Diana shook her head. I spent my whole life hiding from hard truths, running from my father's shadow, pretending I could inherit his success without inheriting his sins. That ends today. Are you scared? Terrified. Diana laughed, and it came out shaky but real. But Elena was right. Guilt is just another form of selfishness. I've been so focused on my own redemption that I forgot about everyone else who was hurt. The investors who trusted Ashford Aerospace, the employees who lost their jobs. She turned to face Marcus fully. You, the man who lost 15 years of his life. If I can't face the truth in public, then everything I've done in the past 6 months is just performance. Marcus reached out and squeezed her hand. For what it's worth, I don't think it's performance. I think you've actually changed. How can you tell? Because the Diana Ashford I met a year ago would never be shaking before a press conference. She was too sure of herself, too armored. His eyes softened. The woman standing here right now is vulnerable, real. He released her hand, but the warmth lingered. Elena always said that vulnerability is the price of transformation. If it doesn't scare you, it isn't real change. The stage manager appeared at Diana's elbow. "Ms. Ashford, they're ready for you." Diana took a deep breath. "Wish me luck." "I don't believe in luck. I believe in choices." Marcus's voice was steady. "Go make the right one." The conference room was packed. Journalists, investors, industry analysts, lawyers. Everyone who mattered in the aerospace world had come to hear what Diana Ashford had to say. Diana walked to the podium, set her notes down, looked out at the crowd, then pushed the notes aside. "I had a speech prepared, 3 pages of carefully worded statements designed to minimize legal liability and protect my reputation." She paused. "But I've decided to do something different. I've decided to tell you the truth." The room went completely still. 15 years ago, my father, William Ashford, founder of Ashford Aerospace, stole revolutionary technology from 2 young engineers named Marcus and Elena Webb. He used lawyers and threats and his superior resources to take their patents, destroy their careers, and bury their work. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Keyboards started clicking. "I didn't know about this until recently, but ignorance isn't innocence. I benefited from what my father did. I built my career on his stolen success. And when I finally learned the truth, my first instinct was to do what he would have done. To steal from Marcus Webb again. To take the Aurora engine technology and claim it for Ashford Aerospace." Diana paused. "Let the confession settle. I was wrong. I was so wrong. And I'm here today to acknowledge that, to apologize for it, and to commit publicly to a different path." Diana talked for 45 minutes. She laid out the entire history without softening or excusing. Her father's theft, the buried patents, Marcus and Elena's destroyed careers, Sarah's death believing her life's work had been buried forever. She explained how she'd learned the truth, how she'd tried to replicate the technology, how she'd been forced out of her own company when the scandal broke. Then she talked about the storage unit, the 37 days, the blisters on her hands, the ache in her shoulders, the moment the engine finally ran, and she understood what Elena had been trying to teach her. "I can't undo what my father did. I can't bring back the years Marcus lost. I can't give Elena the recognition she deserved while she was alive." Diana's voice cracked. "But I can do something he never did. I can tell the truth. I can use whatever influence I have left to make sure the Aurora technology reaches the people who need it. I can spend the rest of my life trying to deserve the second chance I've been given." She looked directly into the cameras. "To everyone who was hurt by my father's actions, I'm sorry. To Marcus Webb, who showed me grace when I deserved condemnation, thank you. And to Elena Webb, who I never had the honor to meet, I promise you that your dream will not be buried again. Your work will change the world, and everyone will know your name." Diana stepped back from the podium. The room erupted with questions, hostile and sympathetic voices overlapping. She answered them, one by one, for an hour, hiding nothing, deflecting nothing. By the end, she was exhausted, emptied out, but also somehow lighter, like she'd been carrying stones in her pockets and finally let them fall. She walked off stage to find Marcus waiting. His eyes were wet. "You did it. You actually did it. Is it enough?" "I don't know." He took her hand. "But it's a start." 2 weeks after Diana's confession, Aurora Dynamics received an anonymous tip. Someone was leaking technical specifications to a Chinese competitor. Marcus found Diana in the workshop late one evening, his expression dark. "We have a mole. Someone's trying to sabotage us." Diana felt ice spread through her chest. She'd seen this pattern before, recognized the tactics from her years at Ashford Aerospace. "This isn't random. Someone knows exactly how my father operated. Who would have that knowledge? Diana's eyes widened. Derek Manning. She called her contacts at Ashford Aerospace. People who still owed her favors or feared her enough to answer. The story came together in fragments. Derek had been William Ashford's right-hand man 15 years ago. He knew about the stolen patents, had helped orchestrate the cover-up. After William died, Derek stayed to protect the secret, to ensure no one ever discovered the foundation of rot beneath the gleaming surface. Now that Diana had exposed everything Derek was trying to destroy, Aurora Dynamics, before it could succeed. "We need proof," Marcus said. "Then let's get it." They set a trap. A fake technical meeting where Diana mentioned a breakthrough that didn't exist. That night they watched the security footage as Derek Manning broke into the workshop, photographed documents, planted malware on computers. They had him. The next morning, Diana walked into an Ashford Aerospace board meeting uninvited. The current board, the people who'd voted her out, looked up in shock as she entered with Marcus beside her. "I'd like to introduce someone who was there from the beginning." Diana held up a tablet. "Derek Manning, my father's accomplice in the theft of Aurora technology." She played the footage, showed the documents, laid out the email trails and offshore payments Derek had been receiving from companies trying to steal Aurora's secrets. Derek tried to deny it, his voice rising in desperation. "This is ridiculous. You're desperate. You're trying to deflect from your own failures. These are your emails to a Chinese competitor." Diana's voice was cold. "These are your payments from offshore accounts. You helped my father steal from Marcus Webb, and when I tried to make it right, you tried to destroy us." Security was already moving. Board members sat stunned as Derek was escorted out in handcuffs. At the door, Derek turned back, his face red with rage. "Your father would be ashamed of you, Diana." "Good." Diana's response came without hesitation. "I'm ashamed of him too. That's the difference between us." After Derek's arrest, the remaining Ashford Aerospace board members approached Diana with an offer. They would settle all claims, provide resources to Aurora Dynamics, license the Aurora technology, pay royalties. The company that had stolen the engine would now pay for the privilege of using it. Diana looked at Marcus. "What do you think?" "I think Elena would say that justice isn't about revenge. It's about making things right." They accepted the settlement. Money that would fund research and development for years. Money that would ensure Aurora technology reached the people who needed it most. Money that transformed theft into restitution. But something else was happening too. Something quieter. Marcus's daughter Sophie and Diana's daughter Mia had encountered each other at Aurora Dynamics after school one afternoon. Sophie was 14, smart and serious, carrying her mother's curiosity about how things worked. Mia was 12, sensitive and watchful, desperate for attention her mother had been too busy to give. They bonded over shared experience, the strangeness of having a single parent who worked too much, the loneliness of homes that felt empty, the confusion of watching their parents transform into different people. "It's weird, right?" Mia spoke first, her voice tentative. "My mom working with your dad." Sophie shrugged in the way teenagers did when pretending not to care about something that mattered deeply. "Yeah, but weird isn't always bad. Your mom works harder than anyone I've ever seen." Sophie paused. "And she talks about my mom like she really cares." Diana was walking past when she heard their voices. She stopped, hidden from view, listening. "Does your dad hate my mom?" Sophie considered this carefully. "I don't think so. I think he's scared. Scared of trusting someone again. Scared of letting someone new into our lives. It was just him and me for so long. My mom's scared too." Mia's voice was so quiet, Diana almost couldn't hear it. "She's different now. She smiles more. Real smiles. I haven't seen her like this since Dad died." Diana felt tears burning in her eyes. She'd been so focused on redemption and work and proving herself that she hadn't realized how much Mia had been watching, hoping, waiting for her mother to come back from wherever she'd been lost. That night, Diana went home early for the first time in months. She found Mia in her room, doing homework with headphones on. Diana knocked gently. Mia pulled off the headphones, surprise crossing her face. "You're home?" "I am." Diana sat on the edge of the bed. "Want to get dinner?" "Just us. No work, no phones. Just you and me." Mia's smile was like sunrise breaking through fog. "Really? Really? I'm sorry I've been absent. I'm sorry I made you feel invisible. That ends now." They went to a small Italian place Mia loved, the kind of restaurant Diana never would have chosen before because it didn't impress anyone important. They talked about school, about friends, about Mia's fear that she wasn't smart enough, wasn't interesting enough, wasn't enough. Diana held her daughter's hand across the table. "You are more than enough. You've always been enough. I was just too blind and too broken to see it, but I see you now, and I'm never looking away again." Meanwhile, Marcus was having a similar conversation with Sophie in their small apartment. They sat on the worn couch that had been Elena's favorite, eating Chinese takeout from containers. "I like Diana." Sophie spoke carefully, knowing this territory was complicated. "I know what her father did to you and Mom, but she's not him. She works harder than anyone, and she talks about Mom like Mom mattered." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "She does matter, and yes, Diana is different. She's trying very hard to be different." Sophie hesitated, then pushed forward. "Dad, you haven't been happy in a long time. Not really happy. But lately you smile more. You laugh. You're lighter." She met his eyes. "Is that because of her?" Marcus looked at his daughter. This girl who was becoming a woman, who saw too much and understood even more. "Maybe. I don't know. I haven't felt this way since your mother." His voice cracked. "And I don't know if I'm allowed to." "Mom would want you to be happy." Sophie's eyes glistened. "She told me that once, when she was sick. She made me promise that if you ever found someone who made you feel alive again, I'd be okay with it." She reached out and took his hand. "I'm okay with it, Dad. More than okay. I think Mom would have liked Diana. Not who Diana was, but who she's becoming." Marcus pulled Sophie into a hug. His daughter, who carried Elena's wisdom and his stubbornness in her own fierce grace. The next time Marcus and Diana were alone in the workshop, working late on a prototype refinement, Diana reached for a tool at the same moment Marcus did. Their hands touched. Both froze. Neither pulled away. "Diana." Marcus's voice was barely above a whisper. "I know this is complicated." Diana didn't move her hand. "It's terrifying. I haven't felt this way since my husband died. And I don't know if I deserve to." "You're not taking anything. I'm offering." Marcus turned his hand over, laced his fingers through hers. "If you want it. If you think you're ready." Diana looked at him. This man she'd humiliated, whose life her father had destroyed, who had given her a second chance when no one else would. "I don't know if I'm ready, but I don't want to run from it either." Marcus leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. Diana didn't pull away. Their lips met, gentle, tentative, full of promise. When they parted, both had tears on their faces. Was that okay? That was more than okay. 2 weeks later, Sophie and Mia put their plan into action. They'd been conspiring. These daughters who recognized what their parents were too scared to admit. Sophie called her dad and told him Diana needed to discuss the Boeing contract over dinner. Mia called her mom and told her Marcus wanted input on technical specifications. Both Marcus and Diana arrived at the restaurant to find their daughters sitting at a table, grinning. "Surprise?" Sophie's voice carried satisfaction and mischief in equal measure. We made you a date. You two need to stop being scared and just admit you like each other. Mia added her contribution. You both deserve to be happy. And we want to be a family. A real family. Marcus and Diana looked at each other. Then at their daughters. Then back at each other. Marcus started laughing first. Diana followed. They sat down at the table. The four of them had dinner together, talking and laughing and building the foundation of something new. That dinner became weekly, then twice weekly. Then Marcus and Sophie were at Diana's house more often than their own apartment. Then Diana was keeping a toothbrush at Marcus's place. Then the question wasn't if they were together, but when they'd make it official. 6 months after Diana's confession, Marcus asked her to marry him. No ring, no elaborate proposal. Just the two of them in the workshop late at night, covered in grease, having just solved a particularly difficult engineering problem together. Marry me. Marcus took her hands in his. Not because you owe me anything, not because you're trying to make up for the past. Marry me because when I look at you, I see someone worth building a future with. Someone who understands that the best things in life are the ones we create together. Diana said yes without hesitation. Sophie and Mia, who'd been eavesdropping from the office, came running out screaming with joy. The wedding was small, close friends and family only. Richard Morrison walked Diana down the aisle, tears streaming down his ancient face. Patricia Reeves was there, having left Ashford Aerospace to join Aurora Dynamics full-time. Sophie and Mia served as joint maids of honor, wearing matching dresses they'd picked out together. Marcus's vows were simple. Elena taught me that love isn't about holding on to the past. It's about having the courage to build something new. Diana, you've shown me that people can change, that broken things can be repaired, that waste can become wealth. I promise to spend every day of my life helping you transform into the person you want to become. Diana's vows came through tears. Marcus, you gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve one. You taught me that real value comes not from what you inherit, but from what you build. You showed me that integrity matters more than success, that truth matters more than comfort. I promise to spend every day of my life honoring Elena's legacy and creating our future. They exchanged rings. They kissed. And 4 people who had been broken in different ways became a family, built from the ruins of tragedy, from loss transformed into gain, from waste made into wealth. 10 months after the wedding, on a clear October morning, the first commercial flight using Aurora engine technology prepared to take off from San Francisco International Airport. Diana stood on the observation deck with Marcus, Sophie, and Mia, all 4 holding hands. The fog had burned off early, leaving the sky impossibly blue, the kind of sky that made you believe anything was possible. The Boeing 787 had been retrofitted with Aurora propulsion systems, painted in a special livery for the occasion, deep blue with gold accents, and on the tail, a single word in elegant script. Elena. Marcus saw the name and started crying immediately. Diana put her arm around him. You didn't have to do that. Name it after her. Yes, I did. His voice broke on the words. This is her achievement, her legacy. The world needs to know who made this possible. Sophie pressed close to her father's side. Mia took Diana's free hand. The 4 of them stood together, watching, waiting. A voice crackled over the loudspeaker. Aurora 1, you are cleared for takeoff. The engine spooled up. That familiar sound Diana had first heard in a parking lot what felt like a lifetime ago. That impossible, beautiful, alive sound that had changed everything. The aircraft began to move. Faster, faster. The nose lifted. And then it was airborne, climbing into the blue California sky. She's flying. Marcus's whisper broke on the words. Elena's finally flying. Diana held him as he cried. Sophie and Mia pressed close on either side. The crowd around them erupted in cheers. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But the four of them stayed still, holding each other, watching the plane disappear into the clouds. "Dad!" Sophie's voice was thick with emotion. "Mom would be so proud." "I know, baby." Marcus wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I know she would." Diana looked up at the sky where the plane had vanished. "Thank you, Elena," she whispered. "For everything. For the engine. For the philosophy. For believing that people could change. I promise I'll spend the rest of my life proving you right." Marcus heard her, pulled her closer. "She heard you," he said. "Wherever she is, she heard you." The celebration lasted all day. Press conferences, interviews, photo ops. Every major news outlet in the world wanted to talk to Marcus Webb and Diana Ashford, the engineer whose technology had been stolen, the heiress who had helped steal it, and the impossible love story that had brought them together. But through all of it, Diana kept thinking about what came next. The Aurora engine wasn't just a technology anymore. It was a movement. Airlines around the world were placing orders. Governments were rewriting environmental regulations. Investors were pouring billions into clean energy research. And at the center of it all was a rusted Mustang that everyone had laughed at. That night, after the crowds had dispersed and the cameras had stopped rolling, Diana found Marcus alone in the Aurora Dynamics workshop. He was sitting in the driver's seat of the Mustang, engine off, just sitting there in the dark. Diana opened the passenger door and slid in beside him. "You okay?" "I don't know." Marcus stared at the steering wheel. "I've been waiting for this day for 15 years, dreaming about it, fighting for it. And now that it's here, it feels different than you expected. It feels empty." His voice cracked. "She should be here, Diana. Elena should be sitting in this seat, not me. She was the one who believed. She was the one who never gave up. Even when I wanted to quit, even when I wanted to burn the patents and walk away, she kept pushing, kept dreaming, kept working." Diana reached over and took his hand. "She is here. Every time that engine runs, she's here. Every plane that takes off with Aurora technology, she's flying it. You didn't just build a machine, Marcus. You built a monument to her. And now the whole world knows her name." Marcus turned to look at her, tears streaming down his face. "How did you know that first time you came to the workshop, when I gave you the binder? How did you know you could do it?" "I didn't." Diana laughed softly. "I was terrified. I thought I'd fail. I thought you'd send me away and I'd spend the rest of my life proving that I was exactly like my father." "So, what made you try?" Diana thought about that question. Really thought about it. "Elena," she finally said. "Not you. Not the technology. Not even redemption. It was Elena. Her words in that binder. Her philosophy. Her belief that the universe doesn't have a scarcity problem. It has a wisdom problem. When I read that something clicked, I realized that my whole life I'd been living in scarcity. Taking because I was afraid there wouldn't be enough. Hoarding because I thought that was the only way to survive. But Elena saw the world differently. She saw abundance everywhere. And I wanted to see it too." Marcus squeezed her hand. "She would have loved you." "You've said that before." "I'll keep saying it until you believe it." Diana leaned her head on his shoulder. "I believe it now." They sat in the Mustang for a long time. Not talking. Just being together. Two people who had found each other through tragedy and betrayal and impossible odds. Finally, Marcus spoke. "There's something I want to do. Something I've been thinking about for a while." "What?" "The National Museum of American Innovation wants to create a permanent exhibit honoring the Aurora engine. They want to display the original prototype." Diana sat up. "The Mustang?" "Yes." "Marcus, This car is your whole life. It's your connection to Elena. You can't just give it away. I'm not giving it away. I'm sharing it. Marcus turned to face her fully. That's what Elena would have wanted. She didn't build the Aurora engine for us. She built it for everyone. And everyone deserves to see where it came from. To understand that the most valuable things aren't always shiny and new. Sometimes they're rusted and old and hidden in plain sight. Diana felt tears burning in her eyes. Are you sure? I'm sure. Marcus nodded slowly. But I want you there, at the unveiling. I want you to be the one who tells her story. Marcus. You understand her now. Better than anyone except me. You've read her words. You've built her engine. You've lived her philosophy. He took both her hands in his. Please, Diana, help me give her the recognition she deserved all along. Diana couldn't speak. The weight of what he was asking pressed down on her chest. Finally, she nodded. Okay, I'll do it. The ceremony was held on a crisp November afternoon. 5 years had passed since that day in the parking lot. 5 years since Diana had mocked a janitor's car. 5 years since Marcus had turned that key and changed everything. The National Museum of American Innovation had recreated a version of the Aurora Dynamics workshop, complete with workbenches and diagnostic equipment. The smell of motor oil and possibility. At the center sat the Mustang, rust preserved, paint untouched, exactly as it had looked that October day when the world first heard its song. A bronze plaque stood beside it. Diana read the words aloud during her speech to a crowd of hundreds. This vehicle carried a revolution. For 15 years, it transported a dream that powerful forces tried to destroy. The Aurora engine developed by Marcus and Elena Webb represents one of the most significant technological achievements in human history. But more than that, it represents the power of persistence, the strength of love, and the possibility of redemption. She walked to the Mustang and put her hand on the hood, feeling the metal that had been warmed by so many California suns, carried so many miles, held so many secrets. I want to tell you a story about a woman I never met, a woman who changed my life forever. The crowd went silent. Her name was Elena Webb. She believed that technology exists to serve humanity, not to dominate it, not to exploit it, but to lift it up. She believed that the universe doesn't have a scarcity problem. It has a wisdom problem. She believed that waste can become wealth, that loss can become gain, that the worst version of ourselves doesn't have to be the final version. Diana's voice broke, but she pushed through. Elena died believing her life's work had been buried. She died thinking that the powerful had won, that innovation could be crushed by greed, that dreams could be stolen and silenced forever. She paused, looked out at the faces watching her, saw tears on cheeks she didn't recognize. She was wrong. Diana's voice grew stronger. Her work survived. Her dreams survived. Her philosophy survived. And today millions of people around the world are living better lives because of what she built. Planes fly cleaner. Cities breathe easier. Children will inherit a planet that has a fighting chance because Elena Webb refused to give up. Diana stepped back from the Mustang and faced the crowd directly. I'm not the hero of this story. I'm not even a supporting character. I'm the villain who learned to be something else. I'm the proof that even the worst version of ourselves doesn't have to be the final version. She looked at Marcus, standing in the front row with Sophie and Mia, all three of them crying. Elena believed in second chances, not because people deserve them most of the time they don't, but because she believed that people can change, that redemption is possible, that love is stronger than hate, that building is better than taking. Diana walked back to where her family stood. This car taught me what real value looks like. It's not about shine or status or the size of your office. It's about what you build, what you protect, what you're willing to sacrifice to make things right. She took Marcus's hand. 5 years ago, I mocked this car. I humiliated the man who drove it. I tried to steal what was inside it. And I thought that made me powerful. Diana shook her head. I was wrong. Power isn't about taking. Power is about giving. Elena knew that. Marcus knows that. And now finally I know it too. The crowd applauded. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But Diana was looking at the Mustang. At the rust and the faded paint and the crooked passenger door that had never closed right. And she was remembering the sound of its engine. That impossible, beautiful sound that had started everything. After the ceremony, when the crowds had dispersed and the museum had grown quiet, Diana and Marcus stood alone beside the Mustang. The exhibit lights had been dimmed. Security guards were making their rounds. The building was preparing to close, but they stayed. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object. A key. Old and worn. Metal smooth from years of use. This is the original key, the one Elena used to start the engine for the very first time. His voice was thick with emotion. I've carried it with me every day for 20 years. Diana looked at the key, felt its weight in the space between them. Marcus, I want you to have it. I can't. That's your connection to her. That's everything. No. Marcus shook his head. Elena is in here. He touched his chest. And here. He touched Diana's chest. And in Sophie and Mia, and everyone who's been touched by her work. The key is just metal. But what it represents, what it means, that's alive. In all of us. He pressed the key into Diana's palm. Elena believed in passing things forward, not holding them back. This key started a revolution. Now it belongs to the woman who helped finish it. Diana looked down at the key. It was warm from Marcus's pocket, worn smooth by years of hope and grief and persistence. What am I supposed to do with it? Remember. Marcus's voice was gentle. Every time you doubt yourself, every time you wonder if you've really changed, hold this key and remember what it started. Remember that the most valuable things in life aren't always visible. Sometimes they're hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough to look past the rust and see the gold underneath. Diana closed her fingers around the key. Tears streamed down her face. I love you, Marcus. I love you too. He pulled her close. And so does she. Wherever she is, she loves you too. They stood together in the quiet museum, holding each other, surrounded by the evidence of everything they'd built. Outside, the world kept turning. Planes flew with Aurora engines. Cities cleaned their air. Scientists worked on new applications. Politicians debated climate policy. Children went to school and learned about clean energy and dared to dream of a better future. And at the center of it all was a rusted Mustang that everyone had laughed at. Diana pulled back and looked at Marcus. What now? Now. Marcus smiled. That same smile Diana had first seen on the day she shook his hand in the storage unit, the day he gave her a chance she didn't deserve. Now we go home. We have dinner with our daughters. We watch bad TV and argue about what to order for takeout. We live our lives. And tomorrow? Tomorrow we go back to work. We build more engines. We train more engineers. We change more lives. Marcus took her hand. That's what Elena would want. Not monuments, not museums, not bronze plaques and fancy ceremonies. She'd want us working, creating, serving. Diana nodded. Then that's what we'll do. They walked out of the museum together, leaving the Mustang behind. But they carried everything it represented with them. Sophie and Mia were waiting in the parking lot, sitting on the hood of the family's new car, a modest hybrid that Diana had chosen specifically because it didn't draw attention. Finally, Sophie threw up her hands in mock exasperation. We've been waiting forever. I'm starving. Me too. Mia jumped down and ran to Diana. Can we get pizza? I want Thai. Sophie countered. We had Thai last week. So Thai is good. Pizza is better. Marcus laughed. How about we get both? Sophie and Mia exchanged looks, shrugged. Deal. The four of them piled into the car. Sophie and Mia in the back already bickering about which pizza toppings to order. Marcus driving. Diana in the passenger seat, still holding Elena's key in her closed fist. As they pulled out of the parking lot, Diana looked back at the museum. The lights were going out one by one. Security guards were locking doors. The Mustang would sleep in the darkness until morning, when the first visitors would arrive to hear its story. You okay? Marcus glanced at her. Yeah. Diana turned back to face the road ahead. I was just thinking. About what? About how wrong I was. About everything. Diana opened her hand and looked at the key. 5 years ago, I thought I knew what success looked like. Corner offices, stock prices, being feared and envied and powerful. I thought if I just took enough, if I just climbed high enough, I'd finally feel like I was worth something. And now I know that was never going to work. Because taking doesn't fill you up. It empties you out. The more I took, the emptier I felt. The more powerful I became, the more afraid I was of losing it all. Diana looked at Marcus, at his profile in the dashboard light, at the gray in his hair, and the lines around his eyes, and the gentle strength in his hands on the steering wheel. Elena was right. The universe doesn't have a scarcity problem. I did. I was so convinced there wasn't enough, not enough love, not enough success, not enough worth, that I spent my whole life grabbing and hoarding and fighting, and I almost destroyed everything good in the process. But you didn't. Because of you. Because you gave me a chance I didn't deserve. Because you saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. Marcus reached over and took her hand. I didn't see anything that wasn't already there. I just gave it room to grow. Diana squeezed his hand. I want to do that for someone else. Pass it forward. Like Elena would have wanted. What do you mean? Diana had been thinking about this for weeks. Planning, preparing, waiting for the right moment to say it out loud. I want to start a scholarship for kids from working-class families who want to study engineering, kids who can't afford MIT or Stanford, kids who have big dreams and no resources. I want to find them, fund them, mentor them, give them the chance that my father stole from you. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. The Elena Webb Scholarship, he finally said. Yes. Diana felt tears building again. If that's okay with you? It's more than okay. Marcus's voice was thick. It's exactly what she would have wanted. From the back seat, Sophie spoke up. Can I help pick the students, I want to help. Me too. Mia leaned forward between the seats. I want to help too. Diana looked at her family, her husband, her daughters, because that's what Sophie had become, as surely as Mia had always been. We'll all help, together. The car drove on through the November night, past the museum where a rusted Mustang slept, past the city where Diana had once ruled an empire of stolen dreams, past the bay where lights reflected like scattered diamonds on dark water. Toward home. Toward pizza and Thai food and arguments about toppings. Toward ordinary life. Extraordinary love. Later that night, after the girls had gone to bed and the takeout containers had been cleared away, Diana stood on the balcony of their modest house and looked up at the stars. Marcus came out and stood beside her. Can't sleep. Just thinking. Diana held up Elena's key, letting it catch the moonlight. About how strange life is. How the worst things that happen to us can become the best things, if we let them. Elena used to say that. Marcus's voice was soft with memory. She used to say that the universe is constantly offering us chances to transform. Most people don't take them because transformation is painful. It requires letting go of who we thought we were, becoming someone we don't recognize. She was smart. She was brilliant. Marcus paused. And so are you. Diana laughed. I don't know about that. I do. Marcus turned to face her. Do you know what impressed me most about you? It wasn't building the engine. It wasn't the press conference or the Boeing deal or any of the business stuff. Then what? The first morning you showed up at Aurora Dynamics. 6 a.m. Sitting on those concrete steps in the cold, waiting for a chance to prove yourself. Marcus's eyes glistened in the moonlight. I watched you through the window for 10 minutes before I came out, and I saw something I hadn't seen in anyone since Elena. Hunger, not for money or power or recognition. Hunger to become something better, to transform. Diana felt her chest tighten. I was terrified that morning. I know. That's what made it real. They stood together in silence, watching the stars, feeling the cool night air on their faces. Finally, Diana spoke. Do you think she'd be proud, Elena? Of everything we've built? I don't think. I know. Marcus put his arm around her. She's been with us the whole time. Every engine we've built, every plane that's taken off, every life that's been changed. She's there. In all of it. Diana leaned into him. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve this. You, the girls, the work, all of it. You already do deserve it. Marcus kissed the top of her head. You just had to learn to see it. They stayed on the balcony until the cold drove them inside. But before Diana went to bed, she did something she'd started doing every night since the museum ceremony. She held Elena's key in both hands, closed her eyes, and whispered, Thank you. For everything. For the engine. For the philosophy. For Marcus. For this life. I promise I'll keep building. Keep transforming. Keep passing it forward. Until there's nothing left of who I was, and everything is who I've become. Then she set the key on her nightstand, climbed into bed beside her husband, and slept the deep, dreamless sleep of someone who had finally found peace. The next morning, Diana woke early. She made coffee, watched the sunrise through the kitchen window, and thought about all the work that still needed to be done. Aurora Dynamics was growing every day. New partnerships, new applications, new challenges. The world was changing faster than anyone had predicted, and clean energy was at the center of everything. But Diana wasn't thinking about business. She was thinking about a rusted Mustang in a museum, a key on her nightstand, a woman she'd never met who had changed her life forever. And she was thinking about the story she would tell. Not just in speeches or interviews or press conferences, but in the way she lived, the choices she made, the person she became every single day. Because that was Elena's real legacy. Not the engine, not the technology, not even the planes flying around the world with her name on their tails. Elena's legacy was the belief that transformation is always possible, that the worst version of ourselves doesn't have to be the final version, that waste can become wealth, that loss can become gain, that love is stronger than hate, and that building is always better than taking. Diana picked up her coffee and walked out to the balcony. The sun was rising over the bay, golden light spreading across the water. A new day beginning. Somewhere out there, planes were taking off with Aurora engines. Engineers were working on new applications. Students were studying on scholarships funded by the Elena Webb Foundation, and millions of people were living better lives because a janitor had refused to let his wife's dream die. Diana smiled. She had been so wrong about so many things. She had thought that rusted Mustang was junk. She had thought that quiet janitor was nobody. She had thought that power came from taking. She had thought that success meant climbing over everyone else. She had been wrong about all of it. And being wrong, being completely, utterly, humiliatingly wrong, had been the best thing that ever happened to her. Because it had forced her to change, to transform, to become someone worth becoming. Marcus appeared beside her, still sleepy, coffee in hand. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. Diana leaned into him. Too much to think about. Good thoughts or bad thoughts? Good thoughts. Diana smiled. Really good thoughts. They stood together, watching the sunrise, ready for whatever came next. Some revolutions start with a bang, others start with a whisper, and some, the ones that matter most, start with a rusted old car in a parking lot. An engine that shouldn't exist, and two people brave enough to believe that even the most broken things can be made to run again. The janitor got his justice. The CEO found her redemption. And the old car that everyone laughed at became the machine that changed the world. Because in the end, every engine, every person, every broken thing has the potential to be reborn. All it takes is someone willing to turn the key